Law Talk with Nick Maruchak. Thanks to MKI Legal, your trusted employment and family lawyers.
I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won.
Okay, let's get into it. It's Law Talk with Nick Maruchak from MKI Legal. Good morning to you, Nick.
Good morning, Gary.
Mate, I'm just, as I'm sort of talking to you over your shoulder, you can't see it, but on one of the monitors. I mean, I know that there's a hurricane bearing down on parts of Florida right now, but it always stuns me when TV networks send their reporters out into the field to see just how many of them might get, killed or injured as they stand there in the ferocious rain and wind and have to do these crosses over and over again. It's the most ludicrous thing that we do in the media, and it's happening. All you got to do is lock off the shots of all the sort of stuff that's happening and talk it over. But they put their people out there, Nick. Have they got a liability claim against their employer, I reckon?
Yeah, well, the employer has to provide a safe system of work, and
Look at it.
and that looks very unsafe if you're in the middle of that intense hurricane there.
I mean, that guy there can't even show his face because he's getting sort of belted. Anyway, that's insane. 133 882 if you want to ask questions that might not pertain to a hurricane, but anything else that's going on in your life you want some free legal advice for. We're going to go straight to the lines. Caleb's there. What's your story, Caleb?
Hi there. So my partner and I recently made an offer that got accepted on a property. We had the REWA building inspection contract in there. So we had the inspection, which came back with major structural defects. So we gave them a major structural defect notice, which gave them 5 business days to say that they'll remedy the works. They didn't say that they'll remedy the work, so we gave them a termination notice. And then after issuing them the termination notice, they want to get a second inspection done because they didn't like the first inspection. And they're refusing to give back any deposit or money at the moment.
Okay, so this will be governed by the annexures that go on the back of an offer and acceptance, right? So sounds like you've read the annexures very detailed, and it sets out a process in relation to this building inspection. So you're right, there are strict timelines that apply. You have to give notice, and a lot of when it comes to these building inspection reports, it's limited to structural defects. So it's not really limited to cosmetic issues. And just for the listeners, I do recommend sometimes you just don't take on face value what the real estate agent puts on the building inspection report. I like to go further and say if there's anything that costs more than, say, $2,000 to repair, then you have the right to terminate, but that's a negotiation. But Caleb, I'm actually surprised that you're getting that reaction because on the face of what you're telling me, it sounds like you followed all the steps. It was a structural issue. The report came back. A lot of these terms do have some provision for the seller to get their own report done. Was there anything in there that gave them a right to get their own report done?
No, nothing in there about them getting their own report, especially after we've said that we're terminating the contract. Yep.
And you terminated, you put it in writing, you said the contract's now terminated, right?
Yeah. And then after that is when we heard back from them saying that they want a second inspection.
So once the contract's terminated, that's it. It's terminated. So it comes to an end. You're entitled to your deposit back. What they're effectively doing is trying to do a counteroffer to you, right? So they're trying to make an offer to you for you to agree to see if there's any more room. So I would...
What do you do?
So I would write to them and say, I just want my deposit back. And how many times they refuse to give it back? Is it because they could be just pushing the envelope a little bit?
Well, they just seem to be dodging it a bit, but I said you have 5 business days to return it, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah,
so how long ago was that?
2 days ago.
Okay, so you're in that process.
Yeah.
So they've got 3 more days really under the terms of what you've said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I suspect is your early days, give it a few more days, don't change your position, and you should get it back. But as far as you're concerned, Caleb, you're out. Like there is no room for negotiation. Yeah. Okay.
No, none at all.
Yeah, all right, that's interesting. So a decision's been made. If that doesn't work, now let's say that what Caleb's asked for doesn't come to fruition. Where does he go? Is there a claim that you can make? You have to go to the small claims court, or there's a real estate institute. What do you do?
So you would go to the Magistrates Court. And what was the size of your deposit, Caleb?
It was just a $5,000 advised deposit that we paid to the real estate.
Yep. So it would be a simple Magistrates Court claim, minor case claim under $10,000. You would commence that. So as long as you follow the terms of the contract properly, which sounds like you have, you're entitled to your deposit back because you've got, and the argument will, a lot of time in these situations, the argument is whether there's structural damage or not, and you've got the expert report, you've got someone that says clearly it's structural damage. And when the court's dealing with these issues, they don't know about building premises, so they will turn to experts. So it sounds like it seems very strong on the face of it, and I think they're just probably just playing a little game with you to see if they can get you to change your mind. And because if you change your mind, that's fine. There's a new contract formed, but hold your ground.
So you reckon they're just trying to say, come back to us with another offer?
Oh, I think they're trying to make another offer to Caleb to try and convince him to change his mind.
Right, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, and then my other question is this, Nick. So if he gets to a point where he's saying, well, that deposit hasn't come back, can't he just say to the real estate company, well, okay, you've left me with no choice. I'm taking you to court. And I mean, sometimes that jars them into going, oh, this isn't worth it, we'll pay the deposit back? Yeah,
so the step here would be to just to be reasonable, give him a week or two, and then you would write and say, look, it's been too long. Now I am considering making legal proceedings, and you'll probably make a formal demand for the deposit. You write to them and say, I demand my deposit back, otherwise I'm going to commence proceedings. And and what you could do, and I've advised other callers about this, is sometimes if you really want to push them, go to the Magistrates Court, download a copy of the minor case claim, fill it out, but don't file it, and send it to them, a draft version, just to say you're serious about this.
All right, there you go. Yes, give them probably that 3 days for the 5 days too, and then start ramping it up a bit, mate. Good luck with it. Come back to us if you have no success, by the way. We'll be here next week. Morris is on the line. G'day, Morris. What's happening in your life?
Hi, how are you?
Good, mate.
Just wondering about it. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, mate.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the liability issues. Say, for example, in the city of Perth, they've got those scooters lying around on the pavement, and if someone actually falls over one of those and hurts themselves, who's actually liable for if you're injured from that?
So it depends on what circumstances. So are you talking about maybe someone driving a scooter and then they're driving on the footpath?
No. The scooter will actually be on the pavement, just lying there, and someone trips over it.
Yeah, and if you just go up the top of the road here, Nick, you'll see.
Yeah,
I mean, the orange ones. I don't know where they're at with the purple ones, because the purple ones are Beam, and they had some issues in other countries in terms of the contracts, and the City of Perth were reviewing the contract with them. But anyway, you'll see them. I mean, I see them on the street. I live in the city of Vincent, and they're just lying around, and you. I mean, I don't know. Who do you think?
So it comes down to duty of care, right? So you have to take reasonable care not to cause foreseeable harm to someone. So these cases remind me of like trip and fall cases where councils back in years ago, they used to kind of dig a hole and they didn't put fencing around it. Someone fell down, so you can sue the council for that. Right. So in this case, it might be the operator. So the operator will have an obligation to at least take reasonable precautions to inspect and pick up these scooters and put them in a place where it's designated. So if you trip and fall, if the operator was careless in terms of not taking enough steps to collect it, to collect the scooters and put them in place, that might be an action. The other claim is there's also a bit of responsibility on the person walking to take reasonable care. So you have to, all these things are done on an objective basis. So what would a reasonable person do? So if you're walking down and it's clearly in front of you and you trip, it's probably not anyone's fault, right? But if it wasn't possible,
it's a bit dark, not well lit place, maybe.
Yep.
I was just going to say, Morris, if you're there, you're still there.
Yes.
Can you? Yeah. I'll tell you what. So there's obviously a legal issue could be around what sort of contract the council has with the insurance, with the e-scooter company as to liability. So why don't I also ask the Lord Mayor tomorrow when he's on the station, and I'll ask Basil whether he's looked into, should there be a problem with one of these scooters, who's liable? I'll ask him.
Yeah, because a scooter will have insurance, public liability insurance, all that. But insurance companies, they don't want to pay out money if they don't have to, so they'll try to defend it. Yep. And it all comes down to these negligence arguments about whether the loss, whether it was foreseeable. But that's a great question to ask the Lord Mayor.
I will ask the Lord Mayor Morris. So be listening around 9:30 and I'll get that question out. I'll even give him a heads up to make sure that he looks into who's liable if someone should trip over one of these things that just lies around on the streets, which I don't really understand. But there you go. That's the way it is.
You know what scares me? When I see people going so fast on the footpath and they're just driving by and I'm walking, I'm like, if you get hit one of those, that will... Oh, yeah. And
mostly they are the ones that are privately owned, by the way, because
Yeah.
they're the ones that can go super fast. These ones here are at least restrained in terms of their speed limit. All right, 133 882. We're talking law talk now with Nick Maruchak from MKI Legal. If you've got any questions, it's 12 minutes to 11. We've still got time. Come and give us a call, 133 882.
Law Talk with Nick Maruchak. Thanks to MKI Legal, your trusted employment and family lawyers.
I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law.
Okay, Law Talk with Nick Maruchak from MKI Legal, 133 8882. We're going to talk to Mark now. Just explain, this is an interesting situation, Mark. Explain it to us.
I have a sister who's deaf and blind, and she's under the beautifulest care of some carers that come in and give her in-house caring.
Yep.
And her guardian has now inserted security cameras inside the house, and she's saying it's for her safety. But what's happening is she's monitoring the carers and actually becoming quite intrusive with them as far as their treatment to her is concerned, which is really good. They look after her well, but she's texting them every 5 minutes. Why aren't you feeding her at this time? Why aren't you doing this? Why is she still in the pajamas? Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I see.
And
oh, geez.
So the question is, the cameras have been inserted without my sister's knowledge, and I'm just wondering if that's right or not.
Is that like a power of attorney? Is that like an attorney sort of?
So who owns that? So I just want to be, who owns the house? So who?
My it's in my sister's house. She owns the house.
Yep.
And her guardian is monitoring the house, which is fine. But she's harassing the carers.
Right. So
and
you
they're
want to
doing
know,
a really good job.
So you want to know whether, in the first place, the guardian had the right to install cameras into someone's home.
So
Nick.
okay,
Without
so
their knowledge.
This is your sister's house, and your sister it's your sister's house, but she can't give consent, right? Because she's lost mental capacity. Is that right?
Well, she can communicate, but she's deaf and blind. So
Okay, and this.
the only time she found out the cameras were there is when the carers turned up.
Right.
Okay, so it's governed under the Surveillance Devices Act, and the law says that you can't record a conversation, a private conversation, whether the audio or whether visual, without someone's consent. So consent can be done expressly. You can say, yes, I consent, or it can be done implicitly. So say if you have a sign saying cameras are in recording and you walk into the house, and you still stay there, that's implicit consent. So you need to get consent from someone to secretly record them. There are some defences, though, and we see this a lot where, say, in employment law, you're getting fired. A lot of people record their managers in the dismissal meeting, because there is this defence of, if you're recording a secret conversation to protect yourself from physical or economic harm, that can stand up as well. So the act is illegal, but you might have a justifiable defence.
The person who's had the cameras put in is the legal guardian.
Yes.
Right.
So the legal guardian can potentially have, the first question is, does the guardian have authority to install the cameras in the house, right? So if that's the legal guardian for the sister, the guardian has responsibility for lifestyle stuff and medical matters. So that would probably count if the sister doesn't have capacity to give consent. But then the question is, everyone entering the house, right? They're getting recorded secretly.
Yeah.
So everyone that comes in and Mark that comes in is getting secretly recorded. Does Mark know he's being secretly recorded? Has Mark given his consent? If he hasn't, then that's a criminal offence that can be prosecuted. And then the question is there a justified reason for this secret recording? And the main ones that we see is preventing economic harm.
If you actually, Mark, if you actually went and Googled WA Surveillance Devices Act, it's not that difficult a one. I've had to read it a few times as a journalist, I can assure you. It's not that hard to actually comprehend that one, and perhaps that could be your tool by going to the Guardian and saying, listen, I think you need to read this because we think it's actionable. And see how they react to that. That's probably, with the time that we have, is the best we can do. But yeah, Surveillance Devices Act is the thing that captures it. Yep.
And secondly, she's harassing the workers.
Yeah, that's different, isn't it? Yeah.
Because she's monitoring.
Yeah,
instead of going to their team leader, who they actually work for, and putting the complaint, whatever it is there. If they're not doing a proper job, they're putting a lot of pressure on them direct. Yeah,
well, the team leader surely has to jump in and just take over and say, listen, you deal with me.
If there's no sign saying you're being secretly recorded, it's risky.
It's questionable. Surveillance Devices Act, and surely the team leader gets involved at that point. Hey, listen, thanks for that, Mark. We've run out of time, Nick. Thank you very much for coming in and appreciate that. Some interesting calls again. I will see you next week. It is 4 minutes to 11. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Gary.